You're live.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you for being with us here this morning. Today, we're prepared to answer a number of questions that we received from parents in the community. And again, we're just grateful for the partnership that we've developed, that we've always had, but over the last 6 months has certainly become stronger. I want to thank everyone for your commitment and support of the district and your patience through this process. We realize how difficult this is for everyone, for our students, our parents, family situations, for our staff, and for the administrators and our Board of Education. But together, I think we've done an excellent job getting through this and doing it in a way that is really meaningful and supportive of our students. And we're very excited that we're able to come back in a hybrid model because it will allow us to have direct contact with all of our students at some point during the week. And I think that's has a great deal of value for everyone. Again, I think the students certainly benefit from it, but I know it's really important to our teachers and our support staff and our administrators as well. And so again, while we made a lot of progress over the next 3 weeks before school starts, there's going to be a lot of changes. So we want you to stay tuned, and we will do our very best to communicate with you as clearly as we possibly can. But unfortunately, The circumstances do change from day to day. So please stay tuned and stick with us. And like I said earlier, I know when we work on things together as a community, we do great things for our students. And so again, welcome this morning. We're in the middle school and we are socially distant. Excuse me. And we are also wearing masks. And we have the barriers that we'll be using in our classroom at each of our tables. More than likely, we will be removing our masks during this conversation just because it makes it easier for us to communicate and for you to hear our voices. So again, thank you for being here. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Manbretti, who will be our moderator for today's meeting.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everyone. Just a little bit in terms of the format that we'll be following today. We are going to go over information in a general PowerPoint fashion on the opening of the 3 buildings. Those PowerPoints are posted on our East Aurora website. In addition, if you click on the board admin retreat from last Thursday, there is a further longer discussion of those reopening plans by the principals. Today, we're just going to kind of skim them to set the stage for the rest of our conversation. Due to the number of questions that have come in, I've kind of grouped them by theme and common questions. So the good news is many parents in the community have the exact same question. So what I did is I kind of grouped them and chunked them, and then tried to pick a question or two that represented what I thought was the main gist of the question. We're not fully sure of the timing. More questions are coming in. So what we're going to do is try to provide quick but substantial answers rather than get into a long dialogue. Our goal is to try and answer all the questions, even if not in fully in-depth or detail. But again, to set that stage of what you can expect as a parent and for your children this upcoming year. If there's any follow-up questions that need to happen, please reach out, obviously, to the superintendent, to the building principal, or at any time during the school year, including live during this interaction. We've set up an email account called reopen@eak12.org. Reopen at eak12.org. I will be monitoring that throughout throughout this morning's presentation. That email will also stay open throughout the entire upcoming school year. So if you have any question at all about reopening and not sure who to ask it or where to go, send it there. That will be a moderated box and will be sent to the appropriate person. As always, building department or specifically child-specific things won't be handled at this meeting, but should be in building level communication and reaching out to your child's principal or main office. Most of these sessions are going to be a repeat, like I said, because many of the questions are common questions among folks in the community. All 3 of these are posted and saved online. The first 2 are already up. This one will be up as soon as it's completed. And again, the board admin conversation from last Thursday, where we went into much more depth on these PowerPoints, is listed there as well. What we're going to do is begin with just an overview of what the 3 buildings are going to look like in the hybrid model. And then from there, we'll go into questions. Again, at any time throughout this presentation that there are follow-up questions or concerns, it's not so much meant for a parallel dialogue, but just for interactive questions. Please email reopen@eak12.org. That being said, we will now turn it over to Ms. Lyons, principal over at Parkdale, to give us an overview of what Parkdale is going to look like this fall.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna speed through this a little bit quicker than I did yesterday, just because we have more questions to answer this morning. And the one of the most common questions I've been receiving is, why is Parkdale doing half days, 4 days a week, rather than what the middle and high school is doing with the 2 days in person and then 3 days remote? So we do feel it's important for the younger children for the routine or teaching from their classroom teaching. We were model 5 through 12 are following. The students would see their teachers on a Tuesday and then be out of routine and not see them again until the following Monday. Teaching of the foundational skills in ELA and math will occur by the classroom teacher with reinforcement and supplementary activities being completed at home. There will be very little, if none, new material expected by the parents to be teaching in those core content areas. Students will not be moving in the hallways to specials, to the cafeteria, to recreation. This will ultimately minimize their exposure to other areas of the building and to other students in the building. For that full 2.5 hours, they will, for the most part, be inside of their classroom with their 11 other classmates or outside learning with their 11 other classmates and their teacher. Also, being in the building for half of a day will reduce the amount of time that the younger students do have to have a mask on. And in general, lunch, recreation, specials are very social times for students. And these times, if they were to occur during the school day for a student in grades kindergarten through 4th grade, they just wouldn't look the same as they normally do. You know, lunch, they like to talk to each other, touch each other, get out of their seats. Recreation, we have whole grade levels going out in the playground at the same time. We just wouldn't be able to have those as we have in the past under these circumstances. This is just our hybrid schedule, what we will be following. There will be exceptions to the AM and PM sessions for those students with special needs and families with extenuating circumstances. There is a survey that I've sent out last Wednesday and then again yesterday morning that you can indicate if you would like to be considered for the opposite session that your child will normally be assigned to. And I will be looking over those survey results this week and then determining if we can accommodate those families for childcare, transportation purposes. And we will be creating schedules for students. There'll be schedules for students who attend in person in the morning, those who attend in person in the afternoon, and then for Wednesdays, which will be a remote learning. And if you do click on that link, there are sample schedules. I'm just going to pull here to show you what it looks like and what it means. So there's 5 a.m. schedules and 5 p.m. schedules. So if you just glance at the grade 4 after child were to come into in-person learning in the afternoon, the morning would be virtual. So this is a snapshot of what it might look like. The specials in blue will be offered live synchronously at those exact times, and the children will get those Google Meet links via the Google Classroom for specials. If a child watch those shows or participate in those live, we will have recorded versions available on the Google Classroom. During the yellow blocks of time, they will work on any supplementary or reinforcement or science and social studies activities that the teacher sent home the previous day or that the teacher has posted on the Google Classroom. So it will be a mix of electronic assignments and paper assignments. And that green block there, if students do receive services, support services, AIS reading, math, speech, OTPT resource room, that half-hour block would be the time when we will again offer synchronous live small group individual sessions. Services, they will be able to use that time. The teacher posts on their Google Classroom or that they do send home with them. Will still be assigned a letter day. Okay. Wednesdays will still be assigned a letter day. So for example, the first Wednesday will be an E day. So students would complete whatever special they have on an E day. So if you refer to the schedule up top here, if you were in 4th grade and you attended in the afternoon, you would complete music on that virtual Wednesday. So every student will begin their Wednesday with a Google Meet and some small group Google Meets. There'll be a chance for the students and some smaller group get to know you activities. And then right into 4th grader who attends school in the afternoon, you would do your music lesson for that day. And that will also be posted on their Google Classroom. Would be used
All right, so Jess is going to try and make some audio adjustments. If we know we were going in and out just a little bit, just the first, the format is the same for all three sessions. So for the Parkdale parents watching, you can go to either of the two previous sessions and you will get the overview of the Parkdale. It would be right at the beginning of either of the other two, but let's see if oh,
Does anyone have headphones I can use?
yes, I do. So why don't
Can you hear
we?
me?
Yep, hang on.
Yes.
I'll give her mine, Mark. Just want to use. Do you want to use these?
Thank you.
Yeah. There's no microphone on there. You can hear, but you want to use this, Jess?
All right, we are going to just, thanks for sticking with us. We're going to change our audio out here. Again, for those of you that are Parkdale parents and want to watch, I know it's a little choppy, want to watch that in its entirety. Go ahead, try again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yep, I'm going to speed through this. So that's a sample Wednesday schedule. You can click on the link and you'll be able to see what that looks like.
All right.
Prior to September 10th, we have kindergarten students and any families new to the district. You will have the opportunity to come into Parkdale, to see their classroom, meet the teacher, and visit the school. Also, our class lists will be finalized in the coming weeks, and notifications will be made as soon as possible. I can't do this. I'm hearing myself.
Okay.
But I'm hearing myself.
All right. That's okay. Okay, so what we're going to do is, for the Parkdale piece, watch either of the previous two. Why don't we jump over to the middle school and high school? Yeah.
Okay. Usually you know who your child's teacher is by now. List will be finalized after the results of the survey are in today. In the next couple of days, we'll be moving students around and notifying you as soon as possible. For transportation, there'll be 22 students.
Nope. All right. Nope. We don't have that. All right. Why don't we? Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the middle school and high school. And again, for Parkdale parents, we're going to encourage you to watch either of the previous two presentations where Ms. Lyons was able to go over them without the audio difficulties in their entirety, and then in great depth at the board admin retreat. So we apologize for that choppy start, and we're going to move on to Mr. Brown and Mr. Roberts.
Okay, can I be heard? Am I good? Okay. So, and Mr. Roberts and I will, a few of the slides that Ms. Lyons didn't get to, many of them are general slides that are district-wide. So we'll do our best to fill you in as they fix that problem. So as you most likely know by now, at the middle school and high school, grades 5 through 12, and I know this PowerPoint says 5 through 8 because this is the middle school PowerPoint, but the high school is following suit as well, where we will have the blue group who will be in school for in-person learning on Mondays and Tuesdays, and they will be remote the rest of the week. And then we have our red group who will be in-person learning Thursday and Friday, and they will be remote Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. There has not been any significant changes to our bell schedule, meaning all of the students at the middle school will still attend eight periods while they are in school for their in-person learning days. There may be some slight adjustments between periods. We're looking at a few options for the cleaning that we can get to later. So there may be some slight adjustments of the instructional time. But the one fairly significant difference is we've added 2 lunch periods. So at the middle school, we'll have 4 lunch periods next year where each grade will eat with just that grade. So if you'd like to check out the middle school bell schedule, you can click on that link, and that will give you a little bit more details. Notice the important bullet at the bottom, that the first day for the blue group will be on Thursday, September 10th, and the first in-person day for the red group will be on Friday, the 11th. And we're doing this just to provide an opportunity for all of the students to come in to the building for in-person learning during those first 2 days, just to go over the safety procedures, all the protocols, and to check out the building so they feel comfortable. And then we'll move forward on Monday, September 14th. Mr. Roberts, anything to add at this point?
Just quickly, a good morning to everyone. And similar to the middle school, the high school schedule will be relatively the same start time, same end time. Similar again to the middle school, minor adjustments, possibly to passing times, but nothing major. So students can feel comfortable with that same schedule as we've had in the past.
And this is just a quick chart just to show you, try to make it a little bit more clear of the in-person learning for the blue group Monday, Tuesday, and for the red group the Thursday and Friday, with remote learning for all on Wednesday. Our rationale for this quickly is just, when we split the cohort of students in half, obviously that means there are a lot fewer students in the building, which helps us to social distance. It helps us to follow all of the protocol. We have a lot of protocol and procedures that New York State and Governor Cuomo has given us, and this just helps it so we are able to follow all of those guidelines. We will follow the traditional A through F cycle, meaning it's a 6-day cycle. That's one of the reasons why Mr. Roberts and I felt it was very important to have students here 2 consecutive days as opposed to every other day. Because, for example, at the middle school level, AC and E days are pretty much identical for students, and then BDF days are identical for students, meaning their specials are every other day and certain classes happen every other day. So by having 2 consecutive days of in-person learning, the students are guaranteed an ACE day and a BDF day, which means they're able to see all of their special area teachers, and they're able to make those connections. And then those special area teachers can also help prepare them for the remote learning that will take place later on, or a different portion of the week. Also, one thing that's important to note is that attendance will be taken both in-person learning and during the remote learning sessions. So when students are not in person, they will be, and we'll get a little bit more into this later on in the presentation, but they will be required to check in, and we will be taking attendance at those times as well. Mr. Roberts, anything to add at this point?
At this point, I'd just like to say that if we use our blue group as an example, Monday and Tuesday, they'll run through a normal schedule, taking every single class on those 2 days. We'll get into what Wednesday looks like later on in our presentation. And then the expectation for Thursday and Friday, again, using the blue group as an example, is that they would be logging in for the, we'll call them the core areas, but those courses that end in Regents exams or AP exams. So at this point, the Regents exams and AP exams are still on the calendar, still on the schedule, with no revision. So we have no flexibility with the curriculum. So we need to have 4 days of instruction with support on Wednesdays, again, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So on Thursday and Friday, again, using the blue group, they'd be logging in and watching a live stream of their English, social studies, math, and science classes. And our new Google Suite of technology allows them to log in for the Google meeting, and it also takes attendance and will log their attendance in its entirety for that period. So we had to make that decision because we didn't want our high school students to be waking up at for classes from 7:45 all the way to 2:45 in the afternoon. That was going to be way too much time in front of the computer, and the Regents and AP, the need to prepare for those made that decision fairly easy, that we were going to log in and view those classes only. Other classes, elective classes, students will be, on the days they're not with us, they will be completing work that was given to them when they were in session. That could be online assignments, it could be group work, it could be projects, it could be watching supplemental videos that our teachers have created for them to support the instruction. So that's going to look a little bit different depending on the content area. So we're pretty comfortable with this plan, and we think that it maintains a consistent instruction over the course of an entire week. And using the live stream technology, we're excited to give our students that opportunity.
And I would just like to echo that, from the middle school perspective, we'll follow suit using our core classes as the classes that would potentially be live streamed. Just to note at the bottom, it says students with high academic needs in a hybrid model will be prioritized for a full return or a 4 days per week in-person learning. And, to start the school year, we're going to start consistently where all the students have 2 days of the in-person learning. And then as things develop, we'll take teacher, recommendations, teacher input, and there'll be a team to identify, are there some students who, would really benefit from that 4 days for special, education purposes. And we'll go through that and work with those parents as well. Prior to September 10th, all 5th graders and all 9th graders at the high school will have the opportunity to tour the buildings. At the middle school, we will definitely have 5th grade parents come in to meet with staff members. We will do this in small groups, so it will look a little bit differently. We do not have the supply drop-off day, but we are going to provide tours and opportunities for students who have not been in the building to come to the building to check it out. And this includes students who are new to the district. And one thing to add is, typically by now you would have received your child's detailed schedule, but that process has been delayed, obviously due to everything going on. But as soon as we have that information, we will certainly share that with you. And our goal is to have all the student schedules done or completed by the end of next week. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks, you will have that information. And we just really appreciate and we thank you for your patience and your flexibility as we work very diligently through that process.
And if I can jump in, Mr. Brown, the high school will have an abbreviated orientation as well. Although we had open house in January and our students were able to tour the building and meet teachers, we would still like to invite them in small groups, and I'll be communicating that in the next day or two of which day we're going to do that. And the program would include getting the students' schedules, walking the building, getting a sense of what the building is going to look like this year, meeting school counselors and some select teachers. Our student schedules, I'll try and be as optimistic as Mr. Brown, but I'm thinking it's going to be that first week in September that I'll have the schedules ready to send out. Our freshmen I'm hoping orientation will be before that, maybe even as soon as next Friday, and they'll get their schedules at that time. But upperclassmen, I think it's going to be the first week in September. I also want to say that if we have students who are in need of wanting a private tour, meaning upperclassmen who are concerned about a return to school, please contact our main office and we can arrange that so students can hit the ground running on our first day, and we can lower some of that possible high level of anxiety about returning to school. So again, please, we're here for you. Please reach out and arrange that through the high school and middle school main offices.
Okay, so the next slide here is where Ms. Lyons started to experience some difficulties. So transportation, there will be a maximum of 22 students per bus, and they will students will have facial coverings. We will have extras on the bus in case they forget or don't have one. And we will seat from back to front to really limit the amount of face-to-face experience that the students will have. Another important note is, I believe it's pronounced Zuno, Z71. Disinfectant will be used, which does provide superior protection for about 30 days. So if you'd like to learn more about that, you could see page 21 of our reopening plan on the website. And then high touch areas will be cleaned between runs. Arrival at the middle school, we'll be using 4 doors in total. In-school temperature readings will occur. We will still have the parent drop-off on the North Grove. One thing that's great is the sidewalk has been replaced. So many of our students who started their day off at the middle school by stepping in a giant mud puddle, that will not happen anymore. So that's great news. The other good news is that we're hoping that more students will be dropped off and picked up at a time, because we'll be able to utilize a longer portion of that sidewalk, because we do anticipate there will be more parent drop-offs. We will also have student or staff members who will be assisting with the flow. For students who are dropped off, ride their bike or walk to school, if they do arrive before that 7:45 bell rings to signal that students may head up to their homeroom, we've typically had those students wait in the cafeteria. And then by 7:40, 7:45, our cafeteria is pretty full. So what we're going to do this coming year is designate different areas for grade levels to go. For example, 8th graders may report to the multi-purpose room before 7:45, 7th grade maybe in the rubber gym, and 5th and 6th maybe in the cafeteria. Those are the type of things that we're putting together just to ensure that there's no large gatherings of students. Students who ride the bus, we will release 1 bus at a time using 2 separate entrances. Again, just to make sure that there's no large gathering of students, and students will go immediately to their homeroom. Mr. Roberts, anything to add?
The only thing to add there is we have 2 bus runs at the high school. We still have our early period class and first period class. So we, and forgive me, Mr. Brown, at the high school and middle school, at least at the beginning, we're not going to be using our lockers. I don't know if you mentioned that. But with that said, when the early period or that first run arrives at the high school, students are going to report directly to early period because we will not be using our lockers. And after the second run, all students will this year report to first period. And we're going to incorporate our homeroom into first period. Although there's all kinds of benefits of having a homeroom, it truly was at this point an unnecessary gathering of students. So we will have our homeroom built into first period. So students coming in on that second run will go right to their first period class, which will also be their homeroom.
And that will be consistent with the middle school as well. We're working very diligently on, we are still going to have the homeroom, but we're trying to schedule where whatever class the student has first period, that will be their homeroom teacher. It's not going to work perfectly due to some specials. We don't want students to have different homerooms every day, like if their first period was a special that changed. So we're working through that process right now, and we're very confident that we have a good solution for that. Dismissal will look very similar, multiple doors. Yes.
Can I chime in to yours now? Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Yes. Sure.
Is it fixed? Can you hear me?
We can.
So for
Thank you.
arrival at Parkdale, it will be basically the same as the middle school and the high school. I know some parents have reached out to me about dropping off at 8:30, like we used to be able to do. I am still working on that. I have to find the staffing and the locations for those students to go prior to them going to their classrooms at 8:45. We'll also have designated doors for students to enter through depending on their grade level. And we'll have plenty of staff out there to assist in this process with the younger students. Thank you.
Yes. And again, the dismissal will look very similar. We'll obviously just, we have signage and we'll have staff members just assisting with the social distance. Breakfast and lunch, really just the cafeteria. So speaking of the middle school, if you've been there, you know that we have a fairly large cafeteria. Typically, pre-COVID times, we've had around 260 students eating lunch at a time. Using this hybrid model and spacing out the 4 different lunches. So like I said, all 5th graders will eat with just 5th graders, 6th graders with just 6th graders, and so on. We will have no more than 60 to 70 students per lunch period. And to be honest with you, once we have some numbers of some students who will be staying home virtually that we'll talk about later, that number will probably shrink a little bit. We are planning on using student desks instead of the tables, just to allow us to spread them out, with a minimum of the 6 feet. We'll also have procedures in place. We'll have markings on the floor of where to stand when the students wait in line for lunch or to purchase a snack. And we will have procedures in place for throwing trash out and spreading them out so there's no lines, and to limit the amount of movement within the cafeteria of students walking by each other. Mr. Roberts, anything to add?
We will have similar signage and traffic flow patterns at the high school. The one major difference between the middle school and the high school is our cafeteria is substantially smaller than the middle school. So in order to maintain that social distancing that we're required to have, we're going to have we have 3 lunches. And all approximately 220 students. Half of those students will eat in the cafeteria. I'm going to do my best to make sure that our seniors are scheduled for the cafeteria so that on nice days they can take advantage of sitting outside at the picnic tables. And then the other half of the students assigned to one of the 3 lunches, they will be eating in the first gym. So we'll be running 2 locations for our lunches: the gym and the cafeteria. And again, in the cafeteria, we'll be sitting at our tables, and in the gym, we'll be sitting at desks. And that is the only way that we can maintain that required physical distancing between students during the lunchroom.
So for Parkdale, just real quick on dismissal, if you are picking your child up from school, you're used to coming into the cafeteria and signing them out. We will have an alternate location, probably multiple locations outdoors where you will be able to sign out your child if you do pick them up at the end of the day. We are not serving breakfast and lunch at Parkdale, but we will be sending it home with students. So any students who receive free or reduced lunches, we'll send those, and breakfast, we'll send those home in the backpacks each day. And then any families wishing to buy breakfast or lunch, we will have an online ordering system. You will be able to do that. And then it'll also be sent home with your child in their backpack. That's it.
Okay, cleaning and disinfecting. We'll speak a little bit more about this later as well, but we are following all New York State Department of Health and CDC guidelines. We've increased the amount of hand sanitizers throughout the building and in each classroom. Drinking fountains are limited to the bottle fill purposes only, and we have designated times that will be posted on the bathrooms each day for deep cleaning and sanitization of the bathrooms by the cleaning staff. Movement throughout the building. This is more in the hallways. Masks must be worn all times by students and staff. We're limiting the face-to-face encounters. And we're adding, most of our hallways will be one way, meaning traffic will hug the right wall or lockers. There will be tape on the floors to signal this. And then in the middle of the hallway, there will be no traffic. So students will be moving one way. Potentially our stairs may be one way, where there will be certain stairs designated for going up and certain ones designated for coming down. We are obviously limiting, any large group gatherings within the hallway. And it says here, like the before and after school activities, we're going to start the year off without having those things, but we're then going to hopefully bring them back as quickly as possible once we have all of our safety protocols and we've done a test run to see when we can bring those back. Lastly, like Mr. Roberts alluded to, the students will not be using their lockers to start the school year off. So students at the middle school and high school will carry their supplies with them. And And so we do anticipate that will create less gathering in the hallway, as students will not stop to go to their lockers. They'll just go to the next class. Mr. Roberts or Ms. Lyons, anything to add?
The only thing to add at the high school is from a movement standpoint. We're fortunate that the center of our building is a large circle, so we'll have one way movement in that area, and that's known as our B pod, if you're familiar with the building. And then our A wing, which is by athletics, and our C, which is the arts, English, technology, music. That will be similar to the middle school, where we'll be hugging the right wall. And again, not using the lockers allows us to maintain that social distance from one side of the hallway to the other side of the hallway. Everything will be well marked, and we'll have plenty of adults in the building to make sure that expectation is followed. And as with the middle school and the other buildings, masks will be required at all times.
In the classrooms, desks will be 6 feet apart. We do have 3-sided protective barriers that will also be on desks. And all high touch areas will be cleaned between class periods. So at the middle school and high school, the transition times, we may increase that 4-minute transition time if need be. We're running some tests this week to see how long that cleaning and sanitization takes. But we will make sure that they're all clean and sanitized between the class periods. We will also provide students with mask breaks. It's very important that they wear their masks. However, when they are in a classroom setting where they're more than 6 feet apart with the barriers, if they're in an activity that does not require face-to-face conversation, the teachers may allow, and we will make certain that we build in mask breaks, because we understand that wearing masks for an extended period of time is not comfortable. And our students will certainly need time to take their mask off for a mask break. But we will do that very strategically and make sure that safety is not compromised during that time. We'll also have more signage, that we've already talked about. And at the middle school, there's been an effort for many teachers to increase flexible seating and adding cloth furniture, such as couches, to classrooms. And those have all been removed for the time being. Any furniture that we're not confident can be cleaned and sanitized has been removed from all learning settings. Okay, Ms. Lyons, did you want to add something? I know it's a little different with the
a few things that pertain to the last couple of slides. At Parkdale, the students will be taking hand washing breaks. Number 1, upon their entry into the building. Number 2, before snack. And a third time would be anytime they return indoors from outdoors. Also, I've been asked a lot of questions about the cleaning protocols between the morning and afternoon sessions. We do have an hour and a half in between. So the district did purchase electrostatic sanitizing sprayers. The rooms will be sanitized with those, and in addition, the high touch areas will be cleaned and sanitized. That includes desk surfaces, chairs, door handles, sink handles, and any toys or objects that were used during the class time. For in the classroom, it's the same as the middle high school. At 3rd and 4th grade, the teachers do team. So instead of the kids standing up and switching to the other classroom for ELA or math, the teachers will be switching. So the students will not be switching classrooms. And I've been asked some questions about supply lists. If you did go out and buy the supplies on the list previously sent out, that is perfectly fine. We're going to use all of those supplies, but we will be publishing a modified supply list later this week. So if you haven't shopped yet, we will send those out, and they will also be available on our website again later this week.
Okay, next, technology, and I'll try to speak for all 3 principals, but they can certainly chime in. All students will bring their Chromebooks home with them each night, and that's all students K through 12. And we will be asked that they charge the Chromebooks every night, and this is just important that they have them both at home for the remote portion of the learning as well as in school. And any family whose internet access is not sufficient or needs help with internet access, we do ask that you call the school, and we will certainly support you through that. Other important information, phys ed and music. The New York State Department of Health indicates that we have to have 12 feet of social distancing for anything where a student may exhort more, yelling or breathing hard or anything like that. or singing loud. So we are taking these all into consideration. And as we make our schedules and determine which classrooms we will be utilizing for these classes, we will make sure to follow all of those guidelines. Physical education, we'll encourage that they're outside as much as possible, which they are already. And students will not be changing for phys ed class to start the school year. Will not be using the locker room at the beginning of the school year. And like Ms. Lyons said, we have adjusted our supply list, and we've significantly decreased the use of binders at the middle school, understanding that students will be carrying all of their belongings with them in their backpack throughout the day. So hopefully you've seen that on the website. If you haven't, feel free to check it out. Mr. Roberts says, no, we're good. Okay, and then the last slide here is additional information, and this is consistent throughout the district. If you do have questions, I urge you to go down to our reopening plan at the bottom, and the COVID-19 information page has a lot of information on there that the district has shared. And that's it. Thank you.
Excellent. What we're going to do is jump into some questions, and I'll kind of talk about the format. Again, I know the Parkdale introduction was a little bit choppy. There are two other copies of Ms. Lyons expressing that briefly, and then one long copy. We'll make sure that all of these videos are posted right on the top of the link to all these videos posted high on the top of our COVID-19 page. So you go to eastaurora.schools.org, click on the little exclamation point in the lower right-hand corner and go right to our COVID page. In the interest of time, again, our job is to answer as many questions as possible. So what we're going to do is just kind of some round robin of questions. I'm going to tell you kind of the order I'm going to ask the questions in by chunk. So if you have a question that you don't think's been answered yet, know that it might be coming in a further segment. If you think we passed the segment where it should be answered, that's where you would send that email to reopen@eak12.org, reopen@eak12.org, and I will try my best to insert the question where it belongs. So the categories we're going to talk about are first, when and how do we reevaluate or pivot between models? We then have some questions on general teaching and learning, a bunch of questions on what's going to be different this fall than it was last spring during a virtual or remote model, a number of questions regarding special education students and services, questions about what the in-person experience is going to look like, questions about what the virtual or remote section of the experience will look like, specific set of questions regarding the children who remain full virtual or have to be out either for comfort reasons or pre-existing medical condition or illness during the school year. Questions specifically on Wednesday. I will say about 2/3 of our questions were about what your kids are going to experience, and we kind of took that as a compliment that there were questions about health and safety and building use and logistics. There was probably only about 25% of the questions regarding that. So hopefully that means that you trust us and know that we will do everything we can to keep your kids safe. There will be sections though on health and safety and building use and logistics, and then we're going to end with just what I'm calling odds and ends, some questions that kind of stand alone or didn't fit into any of those other categories. So I'll walk folks through those questions, my fellow administrators. Again, if we get to a point where you need further clarification, reopen@eak12.org. Shoot an email. I'll be monitoring it live, and then obviously that email will stay open it'll stay open for the full school year, actually, for any questions you have. I'm going to start by tossing the ball to Mr. Russ here with a number of questions regarding when and how do we reevaluate or pivot models. Is our goal to fully reopen and get kids back in school? Why not just do a full open? Why not start full remote? Why not the high school or secondary kids at home and the elementary and middle school kids in? What happens if we get to a point where for health and safety reasons, you either can't staff or you don't have enough students to run your program?
Okay. Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank everybody again for being here. Thank the principals for their presentation. I think that really helps a lot in terms of understanding the logistics of coming back. And again, I know we had a little bit of a technical difficulty there. The last two meetings have been recorded and on our website, so you can see Ms. Lyons' full presentation if you choose to do that. So let's just take a look at those last few questions. And it's our goal to fully reopen and get kids back into school, of course. All of the teachers, all the administrators, the Board of Education, that is our primary goal, to get kids to come back and to be with us full time. Unfortunately, The next question is, why don't we just do it? Unfortunately, due to the current conditions, we're not able to do that. We are required to follow the guidance of the governor's office, state education department, and probably more importantly, the decisions of the Department of Health and the CDC. They kind of set the guiding force. Right now, we're mandated to maintain 6 feet of social distance, wearing masks, and the barriers are not required, but we put it in as an extra layer of protection for our students and staff. Once those things ease up, as the virus progresses and hopefully is diminished, those requirements will ease up, and then we will hopefully be able to bring students back full time at some point in the school year. I'm always hopeful. Why not have secondary in the middle at home and elementary and middle school here full time? We considered that option and we looked at a number of different models, but we felt it was only fair that all students have an opportunity to be here in person with their teachers. There's a lot of value, not only from an academic perspective, but also from a relationship perspective and the mental health and well-being of all of our students. So we try to find a balance in terms of developing our models, and that's why we decided to split models between the elementary and middle and high school, because we thought it was very important for our youngest students to have additional contact time. Well, they don't actually have additional contact time, but more days in contact with their teacher. Instead of being here Monday, Tuesday, and then not seeing their teacher to the following Monday, they get to see them 4 days a week, which we really feel will help and help with the continuity of instruction and learning. If we can't staff, well, we've been trying to focus on having substitutes for our staff, but if it gets to a point where there is a number of staff members out where we wouldn't be able to conduct live in-person instruction, we would probably at that point have to turn to a remote model.
Thank you, Mr. Ressa. Some questions are coming in. The next section we're going to call General Teaching and Learning. And I know some of these have been asked or answered in the presentation. I know, Ms. Lyons, you did not get through the full presentation. So if obviously there's anything you want to add in these. But the first one is, you talked a little bit about the rationale of the half days at Parkdale. Can you just talk about what the educational focus will be during that on-campus time? Why elementary kids are not going on Wednesdays? And then for Ms. George, costs about extra cleaning or busing costs that will be incurred because of this model. So, Ms. Lyons.
Yes, as I stated, the educational focus for those 2.5 hours will be the foundational skills of reading, writing, grammar, and mathematics. Teachers will also be peppering in science and social studies into the ELA and the math, but they will be focusing on those foundational skills during those 2.5 hours. On Wednesdays, we're going to be using Wednesdays to have the 10 kids in the morning and the 11 kids in the afternoon who never see each other or never meet, some time for those two groups to meet with their teacher virtually. And as school begins to start up and we get into our new normal and our new routine, we do hope to bring in students with special needs on Wednesdays for some extra services, or the occupational therapy, the speech services, so they can have those in person on Wednesdays.
Excellent. I'll bounce this one maybe to Bill over at the high school. Bill, any cuts to the curriculum, specials, extra flexibility in the curriculum, standards, work expectations, gradings, comments on Regents exams, AP exams, New York State tests, which I know are not at the high school level, but 3A, but still kind of those standardized tests. So questions regarding the curriculum and how flexibility in the teachers teaching it, and also flexibility in the students experience it. Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Membretti. As I had stated earlier, we are still moving forward as if we're going to have our Regents exams and our AP exams. So in regards to the questions that Mr. Membretti just posed, there's really no change in our approach because we still have those expectations set forth at the end of the year. It'll be consistent as it has in all other years, where we have a curriculum that must be followed with little flexibility in regards to regions and AP exams. And as always in the elective areas, we have our teachers have flexibility to meet the needs of the students and to meet the interests of the students. And that's a sort of a constant examination and evolution of that curriculum. And that will continue this year as well.
But from a K-12 standpoint, as Director of Curriculum Instruction, we're committed to offering our full experience all the way K through 12 to the students. Obviously, there might be some modifications in delivery and the rest, but we're committed to offering our full program. Other just kind of quick questions that I know have been asked and answered, and I'll kind of, out of respect to the question asker, I will read the question out loud and then I'll answer it, and then principals can jump in if I'm either misspeaking or need further nuance. Will the kids or the adults be switching rooms? The kids will be switching rooms at the middle school and high school. The adults will be doing the switching of the rooms over at Parkdale. Will each teacher have their own Google Classroom? I believe that's specifically regarding Parkdale, where they did team level. Yes, this upcoming year, each teacher will have their own Google Classroom. Questions about not enough internet bandwidth or device. Each student K-12 will be giving the Chromebook, so device-wise, we should be in a good spot. Questions about internet bandwidth, we have some potential solutions that we can work with families on. You're encouraged to reach out directly to your school's principal, your child's principal, and obviously, if there's sensitive issues regarding that, that we will treat that information confidentially, but work with you to make sure that your child can fully experience the virtual piece of this. Under general teaching and learning, there's a number of questions about what are our initiatives for mental, social, emotional health and safety. I know that's been a high priority, personal project of the superintendent. So, Mr. Russ, maybe you could just talk about our focus on health, mental health, emotional, social health, and safety.
Sure. Yes, we realize that even prior to the COVID-19, we've been focusing on the social and emotional well-being of our students, looking at our programming over the last 12 to 18 months and seeing what we can do to support our students holistically. Since the COVID-19 pandemic started back in March, we've recognized even a greater need in this area. Being disconnected from one another is a challenge for students and for teachers, the administrators, all of us involved, parents as well. And so we added a social worker last year who primarily works at the high school. We're adding another social worker for this school year who will work K through 8. We've added a psychologist in the last 4 years as well. So the entire psychology team, along with the 2 social workers and our counselors, work together to provide social, emotional, and mental health support for not only for our teachers but for our families as well. And so, like I said, during these times, it's very difficult for us in many ways, and it goes beyond our academics to the well-being of our students. And so we encourage parents and students to reach out for assistance. And I would like to thank our department. The whole group has done an excellent job reaching out to students individually and having individual sessions during the last several months and even over the summer months and what they've done is send out, I think, very clear messages on a weekly basis to help to support our students and families. And I'm just grateful for their work and looking forward to what they have planned for the upcoming school year. And then, like I said earlier, I think one of the things and the reason we decided to have all students come back for some period of the week is again, not only related to academics, but also to their mental health. Having connections directly with teachers and the staff here at school is very important to all of our students, regardless of their age. So we're very confident about our model. And I'm very pleased with all the time and effort that has been put in to pull it together and make it happen. I'd like to thank our task force again because they were critical in the development of what you're seeing today. So thank you.
And on my end, I've had a series of meetings with all the counselors, psychologists, and social workers, and I know yesterday regarding how they're going to do their job in the midst of both a pandemic and civil unrest. They met yesterday to produce a document that kind of outlines their approach. They emailed it to me late last night, and I'm here early this morning, so I've not reviewed that document yet, but know that our mental health and safety team is right on where they need to be in terms of approaching that. Next series of questions are just talking about what for the virtual or online piece. Obviously, this pandemic's going on far longer than any of us want it to. But how will the spring experience that we all had back in March, April, May, and June of last year, what have we learned from that? How is this fall going to be different? So maybe Matt, Mr. Brown, do you want to start talking about that in a general overview, questions of how it will look different? Will work be marked as complete or will it be graded? How are we set with technology? There was some allusion to as capabilities allow. Questions of streamlining communication, streamlining tech use, more consistent use of PowerSchool, classroom calendars, Google Classroom. Will there be parent technology professional development? The answer to that one is yes. I'll save that answer from you. Will there be increased accountability, attendance, and other expectations since spring?
So yes, it certainly will look different. The remote portion of this hybrid model will look different than it did in the spring. For example, at the middle school, many of you know who had a middle schooler that we went to a standards met, standards not met model instead of your standard grades. So this fall, we will have grades. We will be grading. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to look like yet. We're going to work with our teachers and develop something that we feel is fair and equitable, but that's standard based and that shows what the students know and what they've learned. So also in regard to technology, last year I have to commend our teachers. They did an exceptional job in transitioning overnight. Literally, it was like the flip of a switch where they'd been, learned and been instructing this one way their whole careers. And then all of a sudden we had to completely change everything and go remote. And the teachers really worked very hard, countless hours in trying to make it as effective and as engaging as possible. Part of doing so is they went out and sought, different programs that they used that helped, get their lessons across. And we actually had over 600 programs district-wide that were used in the spring. A lot of the feedback we heard was that it was just too much. It was too much on the student experience and the parent experience. And so we've limited that down. So this coming fall, we have about 70 programs that the district will be utilizing to get this, across. We went from 600 to 70. And obviously the Google Suite, we have upgraded our Google Suite. So that will be the primary program that everything's gone through. There will be some other ones used as well. And the teachers will have been trained in this. We have some professional development happening with teachers as well for the remote learning. So again, they worked really hard. They did an incredible job in the spring, but now for the fall, we're looking at taking it up a notch. The accountability will be a little bit increased. As I stated earlier, students will still be taking attendance, or teachers will be taking attendance of the students during the remote learning as well. So all of those expectations have increased. The other thing we're talking about is mainstreaming how assignments are turned in. We're trying to make that so, all the students turn in their assignments, the same way or very similar way, for all of their classes. We're really going to try to streamline it, as much as possible for your experience.
Thanks, Matt. And I know you speak for the other two building principals as well. And even though 70 programs sounds like a lot of those are very course specific or library database specific. So you're going to see a great streamlining in the number of programs. As Director of Professional Development, my focus has been both on getting the most out of the least amount of programs. And the other thing is we've focused a lot on professional development. Our teachers have been trained and are experts in classroom development. department. Through the brainchild of the superintendent, we've partnered with the St. John Fisher College of Education, and they're going to be doing a series of professional developments on engagement, course building, assessment building. So we're going to have a standardized tech approach, and we're going to have a standardized pedagogy approach when it comes to teaching. So you'll see growth in both of those areas as we come back in the fall here. The state is requiring increased accountability and attendance and grade keeping, and we'll talk about how some of that happens. But before we move into kind of the day-to-day experience of the child, we've received a number of questions about students with the highest academic needs, social needs, emotional needs. So Mr. Plakowitz, I'm going to jump it over to you, Jerome, in terms of children with special ed services, whether they be IEPs, 504s, OT, PT, speech, other accommodations, extended testing, separate location. How's that going to work in this hybrid model? Will special ed students be offered additional time, opportunity, days, other interventions, things like that?
Yeah, surprisingly, I think it's going to work very, very well, simply because of having smaller numbers in the classroom. Students that are in a co-taught class will have a lot of attention, 2 teachers, up to 12 students. And it's a great student-teacher ratio. There obviously will be accommodations being met in the classroom, in-person services, along with the special education teacher in the classrooms. For those students that are in special classes, they potentially have an opportunity, K4, possibly to meet all 4 days in regards to ELA or math. We won't know at first. Like Mr. Brown had mentioned, we need to get our routines established. We need to commit to the hybrid model, and then we're going to backfill any of those openings with services, related services of speech, OT, PT, some synchronous activities. That Wednesday presents a nice opportunity, as Mrs. Lyons had mentioned. And these things are going to allow our students to really receive a lot more than they did in the spring. We will be working with some individual families on individual case-by-case circumstances regarding students and some of the out-of-district placements. Each of the out-of-district placements have their own models that we're trying to find some balance in with, and we'll be reaching out to those families if the schools already have not. So I strongly recommend when your child is assigned their case manager, that you communicate very strongly with that case manager. If you are not getting a response, please feel free to contact a principal or myself, and we'll help to facilitate that communication process. Obviously, students will be students with special needs. Their IEP needs will be met or tweaked by a committee or an amendment to the IEP if we need to really look at how we can best help your child to be successful. Other interventions, such as academic intervention services, will be delivered in a very similar way. It looks like Parkdale has some specific areas where they feel they can address some of those academic needs. I know the middle school has an opportunity where some of the AIS support is pushed right into the ELA class as well as the math class. And then the high school has a real nice program with Mrs. Balikowski facilitating a lot of interventions in real time. So we're hoping that the supportive piece will be a lot better than it was in the spring. And we look forward to working with your child. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Plakowitz. All right, so we're going to shift now into a series of questions regarding what the actual student experience is going to look like. Those questions are going to come in this order. First, they're going to be questions about the in-person portion of that. Then we're going to talk about the virtual or remote portion of that. We're then going to shift into students who remain fully virtual while the district is in a hybrid model. So that's different than if the whole district went remote, but kids who will stay virtual while we are in hybrid. And then there's a whole series of questions regarding Wednesday. We're just calling it Wednesday because there's just a lot of questions on what exactly that day is going to look like for you as parents, for us as educators, and most importantly for your kids. So the nice part about the in-person questions are there's very little questions about the academic piece of that. Parents trust us when we have kids in front of teachers to do what we do and do it well. But there are questions regarding how many kids in a room at a time, how will desks be cleaned, how will desks be spaced, how will we keep teachers away from kids, will windows be encouraged to be open as the temperatures allow. Will there be barriers in classrooms and hallways? How do we address things such as large spaces, chorus, band, gym, and cafeteria type things? I know we talked a little bit about that in the PowerPoints. Will teachers be encouraged to have learning happening outdoors, at least for the first couple weeks, hopefully, months of the school year? So maybe Matt, do you want to start kind of that, and then we'll let Bill and Jess jump in as specific to their building?
Sure. So we were able to have our architects help us work with the buildings and grounds crew to identify how to maximize the space within the classrooms, where there's a teacher area that does have a piece of plexiglass hanging from the ceiling, which is just an additional barrier between the teacher and students, but also a plan for each classroom in that specific layout to have as many desks as we can while still being 6 feet apart and following all of the protocols and guidelines that we need to follow. So we're in the mix right now of pulling extra desks out to create those classrooms, and then we're going to run tests on cleaning and to see how long it takes and all of those type of things. There will be the barriers on the desks. I'm actually going to show you. This is the barriers that we have. This is what they look like. They will be on all student desks. At the middle school and high school, they will either be sanitized or students will carry them. We're trying to figure all of those details out now. I know at Parkdale, I'm sure Jess will speak a little bit about that because it's a little bit differently in just a minute. Our large classes like chorus, band, gym, the cafeteria, I think we've addressed most of those things. It's really a scheduling thing and making sure that we just have adequate spaces in the rooms, which we believe at this point that we have solutions for. We are encouraging outdoor learning. We always have. At the middle school, that's limited. We have some benches out back. However, that's also where phys ed typically will bring the students. So, but some teachers will utilize the outdoor spaces if they'd like to for a certain lesson. I know at the high school they have outdoor classroom, and at Parkdale. So that is something that, as a district, we are encouraging teachers to utilize if they feel comfortable and if it works for them. The last thing, the phones in lunch. At the middle school, we've never allowed phones at lunch for multiple reasons. And that is something that we've really never considered, seriously. But now that this is brought up and some people have asked, we will certainly add that to our list of things to discuss and some of the decisions that we will make prior to school. And we will certainly communicate that with parents and students. Mr. Roberts and Ms. Lyons, anything to add to that?
The high school, I think response is very similar to the middle school. Our rooms are slightly smaller, so I'm anticipating class sizes of 10 to 12, but still working through the details of that. Definitely looking at larger spaces for our chorus and band, and possibly alternative locations for those groups to rehearse. We are, and I do have a number of teachers looking at teaching outside as much as possible. And as Mr. Brown said, our senior class from a couple of years ago donated an outdoor classroom, so we'll be taking full advantage of that. And I think the only other thing is I'm not sure if the phone question came up regarding the middle school or Parkdale, but at the high school, phones are allowed during lunch, and they will continue to be allowed during lunch. Ms. Lyons.
Very similar. We'll have 10 to 12 kids in a room at a time, desks 6 feet apart. We are installing, in addition to the 3-sided barriers on desks, teachers will have a plexiglass barrier installed in front of where they're teaching, where they mostly sit or stand and teach from, in all of the classrooms, K through 12. And everything else is the same.
Excellent. We're going to shift now to the virtual and the remote. So if you're an AM Parkdale student, what the PM will look like. If you are a red group middle school or high school student, what the blue days will look like. So again, that piece of virtual for remote. So some questions that we're going to circle around on this. What platform will we be using? Again, as Mr. Brown said, the main driver of the platform, the main platform we'll be using will be Google. Google Suite for Education. We actually just upgraded to the enterprise version of that. That will require some PD from our parents, for our kids, and for our teachers, and all of that is in the works. But specific questions about the instruction, the interaction, the expectations during virtual days, expectations for parents or caregivers from home, how and where to go for help. Will there be a regular schedule? Will flexibilities be built in for specific situations, either on a regular or as situations arise basis of kids need to be shuffled between caregivers and the rest? Will in-person students be on the web stream? No, the web stream is set up to focus just on the teacher and the teaching. How long will my kid be in front of a screen? How much work can I expect from my child each day? Very specific questions about what remote or virtual kindergarten looks like. A lot of questions there. And talk about the balance between synchronous, which means it's happening live and you are watching it live, versus asynchronous, which means it's recorded or work can be completed at a later time, how that changes by level. Certain kids will be in daycare, certain kids will be with grandparents, things like that. And so in those cases, will there be opportunities for recorded lessons or other synchronous opportunities? I think the first thing I want to start off with before I hand it over to Bill over at the high school is just to let parents know that the virtual piece of that will not be as you're watching now, which is kind of like you're watching live TV. Actually, it's going to be interactive. It's more like us here in the room where we can interact. So your child will be able to interact with their teacher, interact with their by raising their hand, by chatting a question. There's a virtual hand raise option, things like that. So again, it's the teacher will be teaching all 24 kids, 12 are in front of them, 12 are at home, but all, just in that example, all 24 kids have the ability to interact live with their teacher in certain classes. But maybe Bill, if you could kind of just talk a little bit about what the virtual experience is going to look like at the high school level, and then we'll bounce it back to Matt and then Jess.
So as I said earlier, our core areas, and I'll say we'll label those the core area for this school year of English, Math, Social Studies, and Science. Those will be live streamed through Google Meet Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And so if students are in person, they're going to show up obviously to the class. If they're at home, they're going to be logging in at class time and viewing and learning remotely through their computer. The cameras will be set up in the classroom to focus on the front of the room, the teacher, the smart board, and not on other students. So we think that will be an improvement over last spring. There will be attendance taken in those classes, so students do need to show up, obviously in person, but whether or if they're at home as well. For those classes, when the students are not in session, the elective classes, again, we'll use the blue group as an example. When those students leave on Tuesday, the teachers will give them any and all materials that they need to complete later in the week, including assignments, maybe even online assignments, setting them up for group work, projects, and many of our teachers are creating supplemental videos to support the learning and instruction. So we're looking at a nice balance. Obviously, when the students are in session, it's a normal day, just like a normal year. But when they're at home, it's a nice balance of direct instruction over the Google Meet, plus some work that they're going to complete on their own time, just prior to them returning to their next live session. So excited about obviously our students coming back to school, and I think that this plan is an improvement over what we were doing in the spring of last year.
Okay, and at the middle school, I would just ditto everything that Mr. Roberts just said. The only minor adjustment is we will have the students log in for their core classes when they're remote at their scheduled time. But there may be a little flexibility built in there. For example, some teachers are looking at flipping their classroom, so they may not have to log in for the entire 40 minutes. It may be a mini lesson of that class, and then there may be supplemental activities. So I guess the big message that I want to get across is, yes, the expectation is that they log on to their core classes on those remote days. I don't want to specifically talk yet about exactly what that looks like, because that's what we're still working on with our teachers. At all of the levels. But I agree with Mr. Roberts. I think that, the increased expectations and accountability and the professional development and engagement that the teachers will be utilizing, I think you'll see a significant increase in the experience for the student.
As we bounce that to Parkdale, just one kind of nuanced question of just performance and progress checks with parents, especially at the K-4 level. How are parents going to know between the virtual experience and the AM, PM, how will parents know how their kids are progressing?
Well, I'll answer the original questions first, and then I'll talk about that. So the virtual half days at Parkdale will, I think if you take a look at that sample hybrid schedule, there is a regular schedule that students can follow if they're able. There will be flexibilities, and no one will be have consequences for not being able to tune in live to their phys ed class, or art class, or library class, or a support service, because all of those will also be available via a recorded version. For kindergarten and maybe even first grade too, no, on their virtual half of the day, they will not be in front of a screen the entire time. If you take a look at those schedules, they can tune in for their specials and everything, and then any classwork that they're doing on the virtual half of their day. It'll vary from kindergarten to fourth grade, but kindergarten would most likely have more hands-on paper activities to do at home, as opposed to being in front of a Chromebook and completing more online stuff. That ratio will slowly flip-flop as you go up in grade level, but by no means do they have to be on a screen for the entire virtual half of their day. There will be a balance between synchronous and asynchronous, and as I said, we understand that several students will be in daycare settings and will be unable to tune in live for that virtual half of the day, but they will not be penalized for that. And as far as how the students are progressing through their work, because the students will be having contact with their teacher 4 times a week, the teachers will be able to keep an eye on the child's progress and what progress they're making or not making during their virtual half of the days, and they will be in contact with the parents regarding each individual child and their individual needs.
I think this really highlights, one of the big things that we saw as an administrative team, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we received a lot of parents asking for a lot more than they got this spring. And we probably got equal number of parents saying that what we offered this spring was way too much. And so just that and while we can't be one size fits all, our pledge is to work with all in the best win-win fashion we can, while still keeping our program and our structure going. And so there has to be a dialogue to make that happen.
If I can just add something to that,
Please.
I think for parents, and I heard the same thing, I think honestly at the end from all parents and students, that they had kind of come to the end of the road, and we needed to move into the summer, because I think what happened in the spring that is now different is we were reacting to a situation. Now we've had time to plan and come up with a program for elementary and the middle and high school, I think that will be very effective. There's more structure around it. There's more predictability, and that makes it better for everyone. And so I think what you'll see is that just a much more productive approach, and students will feel a sense of support and reassurance that wasn't necessarily there in the spring at no one's fault. It's just the fact that we are responding to things on a daily basis. The fact that we've had several months to plan, it hasn't been easy because things are continuing to change on a daily basis. And we need to wait for direction from the governor's office, the Department of Health, and the CDC. I'm very confident that parents and students will feel a much stronger model is in place. I think something that's going to be far more productive in terms of their learning, and also support for them in terms of their social and emotional needs. And so I'm just very grateful, like I said earlier, to our task force, who did a great deal of work in terms of sorting through the numerous issues that we faced, and helping us to set a foundation, and for our teachers and our grade level and department chairs working alongside the entire administrative team, who has just done an exceptional job pulling this together and preparing us to return in about, I would say it's about 3 weeks, successful for everyone who's involved. And so again, I'd just like to take a moment to thank the administrative team. It's been very long days, many 12-hour plus days to make this happen. So I just want to take this moment to thank them for all of them, all the principals, the directors, everyone who has been involved in this has really just done a yeoman's job, and we're just very grateful for your excellent work.
So if you appreciate the work we're doing, gift cards to Tim Hortons are appreciated, because we started yesterday's meeting with the medium. Yesterday night's meeting was with the large, and now this morning I'm at the extra large. Let's shift. That was tongue in cheek. You don't have to buy us coffee, but if you do,
Just kidding. No gift cards, please. Thank you.
Gift cards. Just kidding. All virtual. So let's talk about if the district remains in a remote model, a hybrid model. So half the kids are coming, half the kids are staying home, but certain parents don't want their child to come in and just experience the pure virtual part. So can you pick an all virtual model for your child? Yes, you can pick that model, and that would be by semester. So if you choose that model, you would choose it through the last Friday in January, which I believe is the 29th. When is the deadline to decide? That's a big chicken and an egg question. I want to come back to that. Can in-person students go remote if it's not comfortable or if it's not working for the child or the family? Yes, you have that option to opt out into a remote virtual only setting and then come back at the next semester break. But really, there's a lot of parents saying that they're acknowledging there's a chicken and an egg, that we can't fully exactly say what our program is going to look like till we know how many kids are in front of us. But a lot of parents are saying that until we know what the program looks like, we're not going to tell you if our kid's coming. So I don't know if there's an answer to this, but just preference or advice from the principals in terms of what do you say to parents who are saying, what do you need to know and when, and how much are you going to tell me and when? And again, there's a huge chicken and an egg component to that. But maybe, specifically, we'll start with Parkdale with Ms. Lyons, and then we'll go to the other two principals.
Yes, I've received this question from a few parents too. On the survey that you have to fill out by today, it does ask if you'd like to go all virtual. Some are hesitant because they're not sure what that's going to look like. So my hope is that we get enough students at each grade level, which would be 11 or 12 that choose the all virtual model. Then all of those students who did choose that would be together in a cohort. For example, we use a PM, and they would be assigned a teacher at that grade level. And that teacher during that academic time that they would have been in school, and for my example, it's the afternoon, they would be having synchronous and asynchronous lessons from that teacher that they were assigned to all at one time. So if you would like to give me a call today or shoot me an email, kind of ask where the numbers are at, I'd be happy to share that with you. We have healthy numbers They're a little low in second and third grade. But again, shoot me an email or call me. And if you are really struggling with filling out the survey, I would fill it out as whatever you're leaning towards. And then also notify me that you are hesitant. Yes, we do need an actual number by today, but by no means is that set in stone. If you change your mind tomorrow, we can always go back and change that too. And that is for Parkdale.
Okay, so for the middle school, and I believe high school as well, we're asking that you notify us by the end of the week if you are deciding to all virtual, because obviously it does impact some of the class sizes and our ability to social distance. For example, if we have a classroom where we can fit 13 desks or student desks with social distancing, and we have 15 students or 14 students in that classroom, we're going to have to relocate that classroom to a different location that's larger. So if we know that some of the students are going to stay home virtually, then that just helps with that balancing of the classes to make sure that we can fulfill the numbers and all of the requirements. I guess my advice and what I've told parents, I have received a few phone calls, is just trust your gut. You know your child best, you know your family situation the best. We want you to feel supported. We're here to help you, we're here to support you. We don't judge anyone's decision whether to send their child or not send their child. Every family situation is different. So we respect that. But we would like to know this week as possible. And Mr. Roberts and I will be sending out an email blast, most likely later today, just kind of reminding you at the middle school and high school level to let us know. I will say our numbers are not very significant at the middle school level of students who have decided to, or whose parents have decided to keep their students home. In regard to the actual experience, at the middle school and high school level, it's, we don't have the grade level teachers that teach all of the subjects, like at Parkdale. So we really don't have that option, like what Ms. Lyons was talking about, which would be a great option, but we really don't have that at the middle school and high school level. So what we're envisioning is that the students who are learning virtually, they will just follow whatever schedule is remote for that day. For example, the blue group is in person on Monday and Tuesday. So that student would follow their Monday and Tuesday red group, the virtual, grouping of that day. And the same would happen on Thursday, Friday. So obviously we would need to figure out, like for special areas, how to, acknowledge that and to make sure that they were still going to fulfill some of those experiences. So a part of that is in the mix. Once we have all the numbers, we'll be working on that. Sir Roberts, would you like to add anything?
Similar statements at the high school compared to the middle school. We again would ask by this Friday that parents let us know what the decision is on the full virtual experience. Like Mr. Brown said, we'd have those students watching those core areas Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and completing other work for the elective courses. We, similar to the middle school, have very few students choosing this option, and but if a family decides that that's what's best, we will obviously work with you to make the accommodations.
Excellent. So basically children that choose, or parents that choose full remote, they'll just experience that. There were questions about equal opportunities versus equal experiences. Yes, the opportunities will be equal. The experiences may have to be slightly different because there's certain things that can only be done or replicated in the classroom, but every effort will be made to have equal opportunities, equal experiences, regardless of what a family chooses. And then the next question is going to talk about Wednesdays. Can we talk about Wednesdays and what Wednesdays are going to look like?
Sure. I'm going to refer to the hybrid sample schedule I have. There's at the very last page, there's a sample for Wednesday. It'll be a combination of synchronous meetings with the classroom teacher, as well as asynchronous videos from specials, AIS, and then work sent home on Tuesdays.
On Wednesday.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and at the middle school and I believe the high school as well, those are times we are going to have open office hours where students will have the ability to connect with their teachers, whether it's one-on-one or a classroom group with just questions. We're working on all of that. It's also a time where, students will have supplemental work and, more of the probably more asynchronous learning, and possible some videos, things that the teachers will prepare. This also allows teachers some time to work together, to plan together, and to meet as teams to discuss strategies to help students. So we really feel that the Wednesday is going to be an important day. Also potentially for support services. And our counselors and psychologists and support areas will definitely be in contact with students on those days to make them very meaningful experiences for the students.
Excellent. And just some odds and ends questions as it comes to it. Questions about switching from red group to blue group or AM to PM. Maybe Jess, you could talk about the AM PM, and then Bill about the red group blue group, just quickly. Yes, questions about switching from AM to PM.
Yeah, on the survey I sent out, you can request to switch from the AM to the PM. Once I know everybody who would like to switch and those opting for all online, I will be able to finalize the class list, and I will let you know if we are able to accommodate that in the very near future.
And at the high school, and I think I can speak for the middle school, in order to make sure that we have that 50-50 split, that's why we chose the alphabetical split for the entire high school and the entire district. If we start moving kids from one group to another, then we're going to be unable to fulfill that social distancing requirement. So it's going to be very, very difficult to make those accommodations. So we're gonna stick with those students that are in the blue group will stay in the blue group, red group will stay in the red group, and I believe that the middle school is faced with the same challenges if we start switching students.
The only exception would be if it's a childcare reason. A few students or a few parents have reached out to us. Exactly what Mr. Roberts said, very difficult to do, and it may not be possible, but if there's a childcare reason, please do contact me, and we will do everything we can to accommodate for those. But again, very difficult, and it may not be possible.
Excellent. We're going to move into a couple kind of more just yes or no questions. Is the schedule going to remain the same throughout the school year? What about weeks with holidays? The schedule at this point is scheduled to remain the same. So yes, you can plan for it. Is there a recognition that in these models, some kids will never see each other? Yes, unfortunately, that's a consequence of trying to limit exposure and spread. We do understand that. We're going to try to make virtual meetups happen when and where possible. But yes, that is a part of it. Will the district be providing any help with daycare or for daycare, either resources or financial, and has the economic burden that you are placing on parents be considered? So maybe Mr. Russ can quickly address that.
Sure. Yes, unfortunately, the district is not. It's not possible for us to help with daycare, and we recognize the burden that this does place on families in regard to now having to provide childcare, especially in those kids who are at Parkdale and the early parts of the middle school. And unfortunately, it's just something that is necessary in regard to meeting the mandates of a hybrid model. We really believe that the model that we have moving forward is best for academic and social emotional support for our students. And so, yes, I do realize it, but really there's nothing that the district can do to support those needs.
Excellent. We're now going to move into some health and safety questions. Those health and safety questions are a bit more kind of what's the question, what's the answer. So we're going to go there. The first one, I'll maybe toss it to Mr. Brown regarding masks. What are the mask guidelines? Are we going to send out some guidance on masks? I know we get that on a daily basis in the news, what works and doesn't work. Will kids be required to wear a mask all day? Will there be mask breaks? What will they look like? Who provides the mask? Are there options for not wearing masks? So Mr. Brown?
So yeah, I mean, the simple answer is yes, masks must be worn at all times. And again, this is information and procedures that we receive from the New York State Department of Health and Governor Cuomo. But we feel it's very important to follow these regulations. Just for the safety. That's always our first and foremost. We're all parents in this room, and we have significant others and grandparents and parents, and we're really all in this together for the safety of our students first and foremost, but our faculty, our staff, and their families and our families. So we are asking that actually we're everyone in the building will have a mask on. Now we will have the mask breaks, which I talked a little bit about earlier. We'll make sure that they're done in the classroom. We'll make sure that they're done when students are not having face-to-face conversations, and the teachers will know when to allow for those breaks, because we understand it's very difficult for students to wear a mask all day. If a student, for some reason, this was asked last time, refuses to wear a mask, we will not allow that student to go to the classroom. They won't be punished. It won't be punitive, but we'll work with that student and we'll explain to them and the parents, the reasons why we have to follow these procedures, and we'll come to a conclusion together on what's best for that student. But we certainly will not allow students, roaming throughout the building without a mask on. We are asking that parents provide masks on the supply list. However, we have a number of masks, thousands of them that have been ordered, and we will have them on buses. We will have them in the main offices. So we will have plenty here. If for some reason you lose your mask, or you forget your mask, or your mask breaks or becomes dirty for any reason, we will make sure to supply one for any student that needs one.
Excellent. Other questions regarding specific protocols for entrance and exit procedures, drop-off, pickup, busing, kind of other times where people kind of clump together. That'll come out in building specific communication, what doors to use, what times. I know there's busing dismissal procedures that are happening one bus at a time, as opposed to the running of the bulls and the big stretch. So excellent, we'll do that. Temperature checks. Our first line of defense is going to be parents. Each morning, parents will report their children's any potential COVID symptoms, and we would then work with those parents and families individually. There will be screenings happening within the school, not COVID testing, but non-invasive screenings with the temporal scanner, the shooter one that doesn't touch your forehead. Those will be happening at the beginnings of the day and at other times through the day. The exact protocol for that has not been worked out yet, but there will be checks through the day for temperatures. Will there be opportunities for orientation, safety protocol, comfort building, meeting with counselors? Is I believe from all of our principals, there are opportunities that there will be videos, there will be pictures, there will be structured opportunities, and if your child is in a unique situation that you feel for their own comfort or well-being wants to come, please reach out to your building principal, and that'll be accommodated at the building level. Yes, okay, good. Are the cleaning products we're using going to, what's referred to as the kill time of the product? The products we're using are highly regulated by the state. They are governed by CDC best protocol, and also they have been proven to kill, sanitize, or disinfect the virus within the 4 or 5 minute window that we've been given, especially the one between products. Is that correct, Mr. Wicks? Okay. Good.
Can I just add a comment there? I'd just like to say that there have been a number of questions about the term deep cleaning, and I'll just be frank, I think it's been overused, because really the cleaning is it follows the protocol that is set for us by the CDC and the Department of Health. So we are following all those guidelines and regulations. So everything is cleaned in that compliance. So in between sessions at Parkdale, they will certainly be cleaned thoroughly and disinfected and sanitized as required by those organizations. So I just want to make that clear that we are really beholden to those standards, and that is the guiding force behind all of our cleaning protocols, whether it's middle of the day, end of the day, in between periods. We are going to make sure that the areas are safe for our students.
Again, showing the breadth of the community that we serve, a number of questions about why aren't kids being tested, and are you going to test all kids, and a number of question saying, don't you dare test my kids, and I don't want my kids tested. So, Mr. Liebrecht, I know that you have done a lot of work. You oversee our nurses and our district physician, and you also had the opportunity to meet with Dr. Bernstein. Can you answer the questions that come up regarding what happens in the event of a positive case of student, of teacher? How do we delineate between regular or routine illnesses and COVID? What is the return protocol? Is there special nurse areas for suspected COVID cases? How have our nurses been trained? So if you could kind of talk about that, Mr. Liebrecht.
Absolutely. So if there's a positive confirmed case, it's likely that we're getting a call from the Erie County Health Department, and it's not something that we're initiating because, frankly, we don't do the testing. We can't do the testing. If we suspect that a student could potentially have the virus, then we're sending them home, and we're asking the parents to get them tested, whether it's by their doctors or whether it's at one of the local testing sites. We do have a flow chart that's been provided by the Erie County Department of Health. So if we do have a positive confirmed case, we're just following those protocol from the start. And the Erie County Health Department is really going to take over. If they call us, or for some reason we have to call them because we found out that one of our students or staff members positively tested for COVID, then they're going to come in and they have a contact tracing team that they're going to use to work through the process and make sure everybody's contacted that needs to be contacted, and we're going to be there to assist them. Our nurses are going to have an isolation room in each of the buildings. So if we do have a suspected case within the building, they'll use that isolation room for the time being while the student is here on campus until the parents or someone can come and pick them up and have them seen by a doctor or taken to a testing site if they choose to do so. Obviously, as we get into the winter season, there's colds, there's the flu, and there's a lot of similarities in the different symptoms that we see that has been seen in COVID and hasn't been seen in even seasonal allergies. So we're going to use our common sense here. We're going to use kind of best practices, and we have to probably err on the side of caution because there are a lot of similarities, but we're also not going to think that every time somebody sneezes or coughs that they have COVID. So we'll work with individuals on specific cases and work with our nurses because we certainly do understand that kids have underlying conditions where they may have an asthmatic cough or they may have some seasonal allergies. So we'll have our nurses work with those families and their private doctors to establish a baseline and determine if those students can remain in school or if it's best for them to go get tested.
Thanks, Matt. And I know our protocols have been developed by our district physician, our nurses, guided by the Erie County Department of Health. And there's a lot of if this, then that flow charts that we need to follow. But I think the big thing is the testing and the quarantining, which is a significant question. That's not a district initiative that we call the Department of Health. They swoop in kind of with their COVID SWAT team, and we just provide those resources. And I think that's very reassuring that knowing that all of these districts are going to be handling this case in the exact same way, guided by the county. So we're education experts, we're not medical experts, but the medical experts that work at the Erie County Department of Health, they take over the entire lead on that, tell us who to quarantine, when to quarantine, contact tracing, who should go for testing. Obviously, the parents are part of that process, but it's a standardized countywide protocol that we support, but we don't lead, and that's where that will be coming.
I think, I don't know if you said this, Mark, but also the idea of just the contact tracing piece too, because I think there was some misinformation shared last Friday, or no, it's not this past Friday, the Friday before. The governor talked about testing in schools and contact tracing. Of course, you just addressed the testing part. And when we talked to Dr. Gail Bernstein with the Department of Health, she said that is not our responsibility. We don't have the expertise to do that. That's why we're partnering with them if something does. But in addition to all the testing of a suspected case, they would also follow up with the contact tracing after that positive test does prevail. So I just wanted to share that as well, as it really isn't a school responsibility because we're just not designed to do that type of testing.
Excellent. I know we scheduled this to go to 10, and looks like we'll hit it if we go into a little bit of a lightning round here, with just kind of some building use questions and then some odds and ends and some other things that have popped in over the conversation. So the first is ventilation in the classrooms, hallways. What sort of filters? Due to the community's support of our building projects over the years, my understanding is that our ventilation system meets the standards, and we actually even have better filters on order and will be installed just as soon as we get them. Is that correct, Mr. Wicks?
That is correct.
All right. So doing everything we can there. Bathrooms will be cleaned on a regular basis, and that cleaning schedule will be posted on the outside of the door so students will know when the bathroom was last cleaned. Odds and ends, impact, Mr. Roberts, on the relationship between the high school and Ormsby. A lot of questions about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. We're fortunate that the Ormsby Center is following the same hybrid approach. And many of the districts that send students to Ormsby are doing the same. So, so our students, whether they're a blue group or a red group, will be able to participate in our program and theirs.
Excellent. A lot of questions about extracurriculars, co-curriculars. So everything from ALC to ELT. I think a high school kid got in here and asked to see if detention would be running this year. That's a clever kid. We appreciate him or her. Questions about clubs, virtual clubs, and then a side section of that would be sports. So maybe we could do clubs and co-curriculars, and then Mr. Leibrock can address sports.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think that,
You want Mr. Roberts, all you.
well, I was just going to say that we acknowledge that our students look forward to their participation in all the clubs that we offer at the high school as well as the middle school. And I think we're going to have a slow rollout of those clubs. At least at the high school, we're going to use Wednesday as our designated meeting time for those clubs. They'd be virtual meetings. Because we do not or will not have an activity period as it has been in the past. So clubs will take place during that time. Our academic learning center, similar. We're gonna start off slow. We probably won't be running that the first week or two, but once we settle into our new routine and the new norms, we will bring our academic learning center back. Because of the value that it provides to our students. So, Mr. Brown, I know some things are a little bit different at the middle school.
It's very, very similar to what Mr. Roberts said. The only addition would be our ELT. We recognize how important that is. So again, that won't be up and running the first day of school, but we're hoping to have it up and running, as soon as possible.
And then sports.
Yep. So sports were originally scheduled to start in late August, but the state and the governor did postpone them to September 21st for the fall season. We are anticipating further guidance and some more discussion around the details of that if they do in fact start on the 21st of September. We're looking for some additional information from the state, and we should be hearing hopefully within the next few weeks on that. If for some reason the fall sports season does not run in the fall of 2020, the State Public High School Athletic Association does have plans to move the fall season to the spring of 2021. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and look for more guidance from the state.
Excellent. Start and end times, no changes to the start and end times at Parkdale or the middle school. Okay, and Parkdale obviously is running a half-day schedule, so that will be different, and parents will be communicated with that. Lockers, no lockers used at the beginning of the school year. As the school year progresses and as obviously bad weather comes and children need to bring coats and boots and the rest, we may revisit that. But for the start of the school year, no lockers being used, no changing for gym, things like that. Okay. Mr. Russ, will there be a tax rebate or credit with all the money this model saves, or does it save money? Anything to help offset the cost of childcare?
Well, actually, unfortunately, there won't be an opportunity to give any kind of tax rebate or credit because actually under this new model, it's costing us quite a bit more. We've spent tens of thousands of dollars on PPE to ensure that our spaces are safe. Barriers, masks, disinfectants, those types of things have really cost far more than in the past. Our teachers and all of our staff members will continue to work full time. No matter which model they're involved in. So unfortunately, there won't be any additional funds. And I'll be honest, I think the budget's going to be very tight this year in order to get through, just because of the unforeseen costs associated with our new plan. Again, the offset childcare. Unfortunately, I mean, we're very happy to try to link parents with resources within our community. The Boys and Girls Club, Duck Duck Goose, and the community nursery all have childcare programs. My understanding that there were very few openings left, if at all, but they're all trying to work on expanding their programs and offering additional slots. So we're going to check with them this week to see what is available, and we'll be sharing that with parents once again, especially for those who are struggling to find childcare. And again, I apologize for the additional cost, but it's just unfortunately a residual effect of the program that we've put in place.
And then a number of questions regarding when students are going to know their actual schedules, and especially at Parkdale, questions of when they'll know if the AM/PM switches are approved. We have parents waiting to make employment decisions based on that. So when kids will know their schedules, when parents will know their schedules.
I'm going to start looking over the list tomorrow. So I should let you know if you're able to switch from the AM to the PM or PM to AM, I will let you know by Thursday. And then as far as who your child's teacher is, that will come sometime next week.
And student schedules at middle and high?
At the high school, again, we'll have that deadline of Friday for parents to notify us if a student is not going to be with us, and then I'm anticipating needing all of next week to get the schedule pulled together. So looking at that first week in September, realistically, of when the high school schedules will go out.
And at the middle school level, we're committed to try and have all of the scheduling done by the end of next week. I don't know if we'll be able to get them in the mail the 27th or 28th, or if it would be that very first week in August. But as soon as we have them ready, we will get them out and notify you.
We had a number of questions that came in. I'm just going to try and lightning round them as we were going. Obviously, stop me at any point, and then we'll bring this to a conclusion with a closing by Mr. Russ. So for students attending fully virtual, what will September 10th and 11th look like? We're still working on that. That will be a building level decision of what they need to sign in and when, but there will be opportunities to pick up Chromebooks and other supplies prior to that for any parent who won't be, or any child who won't be attending school those days. Those first 2 days are safety orientation. It's probably best that all kids hear that regardless of whether they're here or not, and again, to build that sense of connection and classroom community. Will students need to log on to Google at specific times for live sessions? Yes, we've talked about that for certain classes. Other sessions will be more asynchronous. Is there going to be the Friday at 3 p.m. deadline? Again, there's going to be more accountability, more standards than there were in the spring, but some of that's going to be building or class specific. Will students be tuning in at the same time? Yes, we addressed that. Can supply lists be out sooner rather than later? With everything going on, I've only shifted to shopping online, and I would need shipping time. I know that middle school supply lists are out. Parkdale revised lists are coming out. And high school, where are you on that?
I'm going to remind our teachers today to have that on their website, but the reality is at the high school it's a little bit different because you need to know what class and which teacher you have before you purchase supplies, because it varies. So as soon as the schedules come out, then go to your child's teacher's website and the supply list will be there.
Awesome. If a student has an IEP, will they be going 4 days a week? There'll be accommodations made individually with the Director of Special Pupil Services. So the advice is to reach out to Jerome. We also had another question about specifically what will my special needs kids day day look like? Again, I'm not sure this is the forum for that, but the advice is to reach out to you directly, Jerome.
That's correct, and or the case managers, as soon as they get their assignments, will be in touch with each and every student with a disability and an IEP.
Awesome. Where on the website can you find all this information? If you go to the COVID-19 page in the upper right-hand corner under resources is a link to all three of these presentations plus the board admin retreat. Under the superintendent's drop down, there are specific building reopening plans there. So all that information and everything COVID related all the way back to March is found on that eastaurora.com/COVID-19. Kids being allowed to bring water bottles. Obviously, there'll be some safety guidance, but yes, the drinking part of the drinking fountains are off. Only the bottle fillers will be on. Bringing it to a close here. If I come back and the kids are emotionally not ready and overwhelmed, can we pivot? Yes, you can, and then stay out until that. We would ask that be a conversation, though, that happened with the principal. We obviously prefer kids be here. We understand not all kids could be here, but if a win-win can be found before you make that decision, we will try and make that win-win. Will there be flexibility in the attendance policy for students who have immunocompromised or health-related issues? We will work with you. Kids who participate in remote learning can be marked as present. Again, we know situations are sensitive and confidential, but with the information we have allows us to work with you in that. So whatever that balance is, work with your principal, but we definitely don't want to penalize kids for medical reasons, but we do want to keep them learning, and we do have to have accountability standards, but there's ways that we can work with you on that. Opportunities for both parents and kids to connect with teachers. Yes, you're going to see a lot of that roll out through the Google Classroom and ways for parents and kids to connect. The specific logistics of pickup and drop off at Parkdale, I know there'll be building level communication of where and what door and all the rest of that. And with some of the special service plans, Mr. Jerome, Mr. Plakowitz, not being released until after school starts, it's been an extra burden on arranging childcare and work schedules. How can you help let me know what my child's extra service plan is going to entail?
Okay, so again, as the principals had mentioned, as well as I did earlier, what we're trying to do is establish a routine that the students that are assigned to attend 2 days as opposed to 4 half days. We want to get those routines established, and then we're looking to backfill if students are in special classes. That presents a better opportunity for them to attend right up front a 4-day situation. Other students, it'll be a case-by-case situation depending on teacher schedules as well as related service providers. So that being said, if you have a question more specific about your child, please feel free to give us a call at 687-2312.
Excellent. We ran just a touch long, but that's because a lot of really good questions came in. So I thank you to everyone out there in TV land who stuck with us this morning. I'm going to toss it to Mr. Russ to bring this to a close. Before I do that, I just want to remind parents that after this presentation and throughout the upcoming school year, this Remind at EAK12 will remain an active and monitored email address. So if you know who should answer your question, please ask them. If you don't know who should answer your question, send it here and we will farm it out to the correct person who will be able to get back to you just as soon as they are able. So again, that's reopen at eak12.org. Mr. Russ. Yep.
Again, I just would like to thank everyone for being with us here today and at the previous 2 meetings. I think these have been very productive, and we appreciate you taking the time and submitting your thoughtful questions. This type of dialogue, I think, only helps to create a better understanding, across the board. Here internally with our teachers, and of course with our students and our family members. I want to say again, thank you for all the notes of support we received. We've received a number of questions and concerns, but we've also received many, many thank yous from the community and from our parents, and we're grateful for that. And I just want you to know that we're certainly in this together. It's a work in progress, and I think while we've made tremendous progress in developing our plan, you can see there's still a number of unanswered questions, and also things that we just need more time to figure out. So I really appreciate your patience, which I know is not easy during these challenging times. But we're very grateful for your patience and ongoing support. And we are very confident that when we return with teachers on September 1st and with students on the 10th, that we'll be ready to go, and that we're going to be able to provide our students and families with the proper programming and support to have a successful fall. And we're going to monitor things, and we're going to be able to pivot as things change, with the hope that eventually we'll be able to come back full time. That is our ultimate goal, I think, for everyone, right? That's what we all want. So again, thank you for being here. We appreciate your support. Have a great day.